My name is Ella, and I don't remember exactly when I first realized I was different from my sister Sarah. Maybe it was when I was 7, and she was 4, watching her play with dolls while I helped Mom with dinner. Or perhaps it was during all those afternoons when I'd peek through our kitchen window, watching other kids playing outside while I scrubbed dishes that were almost too high for me to reach. "Ella, homework done?" Mom would ask every day after school, her voice sharp with expectation. "Yes, Mom," I'd reply, already tying on the 2 big aprons she'd bought me for my 6th birthday. A practical gift, she'd called it. "Good. Now help me with dinner." "Sarah, honey, you can go play." Sarah would skip off, her dark pigtails bouncing, while I'd stand on my tiptoes to reach the counter. Even at 7, I knew better than to complain. "She's still little," Mom would say whenever I tried. "You're the big sister. You need to help out." Dad wasn't any different. He'd come home from work, ruffle Sarah's hair as she showed him her latest drawing, usually done during homework time, then turn to me with that look I knew too well. "How were your grades today, Ella?" Not, "How was your day?" or "What did you learn?" Just grades, always grades. "All A's, Dad," I'd say, and he'd nod like that was the minimum he expected. Because it was. Our house wasn't big, a modest 2-story in a middle class. My friends lived nearby, but I rarely saw them outside of school. There was always something that needed doing: dishes, laundry, helping Sarah with her homework, even though she rarely paid attention, or studying to maintain those perfect grades. I remember one particular afternoon when I was 10. I'd just won first place in the regional math competition, and my parents were beaming as my teacher praised me. "You've done such an amazing job raising Ella," Mrs. Peterson said. "Her love for learning is extraordinary." Mom and Dad exchanged proud looks. "Well, we've always encouraged her to read," Mom said, her hand on my shoulder. "Haven't we, Ella?" I wanted to tell Mrs. Peterson the truth, that I'd stayed up late studying by flashlight because daytime was for chores. That the only encouragement I got was the threat of disappointment if I brought home anything less than perfect. But I just smiled and nodded, like the good daughter I was supposed to be. Meanwhile, Sarah was making paper airplanes out of her failed math test in the hallway, and nobody said a word about it. That's how it always was in our house. Sometimes I'd catch Sarah watching me with a smirk, especially when she'd get away with something that would have earned me a lecture. "You're just jealous," she told me once, when I was 12 and she was 9. "Because Mom and Dad like me better." I remember standing there in our shared bathroom, my hands still wet from cleaning it, looking at her reflection in the mirror I'd just wiped streak-free. "That's not true," I said, but even then, a part of me wondered if it was. By the time Sarah started middle school, I was basically her personal tutor, not by choice, but by parental decree. Every afternoon, I'd sit with her at the kitchen table, trying to explain basic algebra while she texted under the table. "Sarah, you need to pay attention," I'd say, exhausted after my own school day and chores. "Why? You'll just end up doing it for me anyway," she'd reply with that irritating smirk of hers. And she was right, that's exactly what would happen. "Ella, why isn't Sarah's homework done yet?" Mom would inevitably ask, hands on her hips. "She's not focusing." "Then make her focus. You're supposed to be helping her." So I'd end up doing Sarah's homework while she watched YouTube videos, because it was easier than dealing with Mom's disappointment. Meanwhile, Sarah's weekly allowance would appear like clockwork, $20 every Friday. Me? I was lucky if I got $5 a month, usually with a lecture about how money doesn't grow on trees. The breaking point came when I turned 16. I was tired of watching Sarah flaunt her new clothes and latest gadgets while I wore hand-me-downs and couldn't even buy lunch at school. That's when I saw the Help Wanted sign at Joe's Cafe, just 3 blocks from our house. Joe, a gruff man with kind eyes who'd served me countless hot chocolates over the years, hired me on the spot. The work was hard, waiting tables, cleaning up spills, dealing with grumpy customers, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, I was earning my own money. That first paycheck felt like freedom in my hands, $850 for a month of part-time work. I should have known better than to leave it on my desk. Ella, Mom's voice rang through the house that evening. Come down here right now. They were both waiting in the kitchen, my paycheck on the table between them. Dad looked stern, Mom disappointed, expressions I knew all too well. Why didn't you tell us you were making this much? Dad demanded. I just got paid, I stammered. Well, since you're living in our house and eating our food, you'll be giving us half of this, Mom declared. It's only fair. The worst part wasn't even giving up half my paycheck. It was what happened next. A week later, Sarah waltzed into our room wearing brand new Nike sneakers. Look what Mom and Dad bought me with your money, she sang, twirling around. Guess all that waitressing is good for something after all. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried that night, but it was also when I made my decision. I was getting out of here, and college was my ticket to freedom. My parents would never pay for it, they made that clear every time they talked about how Sarah would need money for college someday. So I threw myself into my studies with renewed determination. I started staying late at school to use the library computers, researching scholarships and free tuition programs. Every spare moment was spent studying for the SATs, writing essays, and maintaining my perfect GPA. Graduation day was exactly what I expected it to be, another performance of The Perfect Family, starring my parents. I sat through the ceremony in my blue cap and gown, watching them beam from the audience as Principal Roberts called me up as valedictorian. The Matthews have done an extraordinary job raising Ella, he announced to the crowd. Her academic achievements are truly remarkable. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue while Dad stood tall, his chest puffed out with pride. I could see them soaking up the praise like they always did, nodding and smiling as other parents congratulated them on their wonderful parenting. What none of them knew was that I'd already received acceptance letters from every college I'd applied to. I'd been checking the mailbox religiously for weeks, intercepting the letters before anyone else could see them. Each congratulations felt like a key to a door I'd been trying to unlock my whole life. But the best one, the one I'd chosen, was from Riverside State University. Full scholarship, free dormitory housing, and a stipend. It was 4 hours away, in the next state over. Far enough that I couldn't come home on weekends to help out. I hadn't told them yet. I was waiting for the right moment, which came sooner than I expected at our graduation dinner. Mom had made my favorite pasta, or what she thought was my favorite, she'd never actually asked, and we were all sitting around the dining room table. So, Ella, Mom said, serving herself another helping, have you thought about what you're going to do now? I opened my mouth to tell them about Riverside, but before I could get a word out, Mom continued with a bright smile. I was talking to Joe at the cafe yesterday. He said he'd be happy to take you on full time. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You could earn so much more, and really help out with the family expenses. I took a deep breath. I got accepted to college. Full scholarship at Riverside State. I'm starting in the fall. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. College? Mom's voice was sharp. In another state? But what about your family? What about helping your sister? I've been helping my sister my entire life, I said quietly. This is something I need to do for myself. Dad stood up so abruptly, his chair scraped against the floor. Without a word, he walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Now look what you've done, Mom hissed. Sarah just sat there with a slight smirk, probably already calculating how to get my room when I left. That last summer at home was like living with ghosts. I'd go to work at the cafe, come home, hand over half my paycheck, and retreat to my room. Mom and Dad barely spoke to me, just cold, necessary exchanges about bills or dinner times. The money they took from my paychecks, they accepted without a word of thanks. When August came, I packed my bags alone. No tearful goodbyes, no family photos on the front porch, no Dad loading up the car like I saw other students had. Just me, my 2 suitcases, and a bus ticket to Riverside State. I'm leaving now, I announced that morning, standing in the kitchen doorway. Mom kept washing dishes, her back to me. Dad rustled his newspaper. Sarah didn't even look up from her phone. "Okay," Mom said, like I'd told her I was going to the grocery store. The bus ride to college was 4 hours of pure relief. With each mile, I felt lighter, freer. My dorm room was small but clean, and my roommate Jenny became the sister I'd always wished I had, supportive, kind, interested in my life. I threw myself into my finance classes, loving every minute of learning about investment strategies and market analysis. My professors praised my work ethic, and for once, there was no one around to take credit for it. The rare calls home always followed the same pattern. "Sarah's thinking about becoming a model," Mom would say, not asking how I was doing. "She's just waiting for the right opportunity," Dad would add, ignoring my attempts to share my own achievements. In my junior year, Sarah graduated high school. Mom called specifically to tell me about it, though not because they wanted me at the ceremony. "Sarah's taking some time to figure things out," Mom explained. "Her grades weren't quite college material, but we told her not to worry about it. The right job will come along." I thought about how they'd pushed me to work at 16, how they'd taken half my earnings, how they'd fought my college dreams. "What's she doing in the meantime?" I asked. "Oh, just exploring her options," Mom said breezily. "We don't want her to rush into anything she's not passionate about." I graduated with honors, my name at the top of the dean's list. Jenny's family cheered for me at graduation since mine didn't come. 2 weeks later, I was back in my hometown, starting as a junior financial analyst at Reynolds and Associates. My starting salary was more than my parents made combined. The first time I could afford my own apartment, I felt like I could finally breathe. But as soon as word got around about my job, the dinner invitations started. "You must be doing well for yourself," Dad would say, eyeing my professional clothes. "We're so proud," Mom would add, before launching into another story about Sarah's latest job interview or modeling prospect. Sarah would sit across from me at these dinners, still glued to her phone, still looking for the right opportunity at 19. She hadn't worked a day in her life, but somehow that was fine. I was the one they looked to with expectant eyes, dropping hints about bills and home repairs. "The property taxes have gone up so much," Mom would sigh. "It's hard to make ends meet these days," Dad would add. So I started giving them money, $500 here, $1,000 there. But their hints kept coming, their expectations growing with each deposit I made. The more I gave, the more they seemed to expect, like I was making up for the crime of leaving, of building my own life. The day I got promoted to senior financial analyst, I made the mistake of mentioning it to Mom during our weekly call. Within hours, she'd planned a celebration dinner at their house. "We're so proud of you, honey," Mom said, but her voice had that particular tone I knew too well. "It's wonderful that you're doing so well. Especially since things have been so difficult here." Right on cue, Dad sighed heavily. "The company's making cuts again. They've reduced my hours. And these bills," Mom added, pulling a crumpled paper from her pocket. Her eyes were already welling up with tears. "I just don't know how we're going to manage the utilities this month." I glanced at Sarah, still absorbed in her phone, wearing designer jeans that I knew Mom and Dad couldn't afford. I wanted to point out that a 22-year-old capable of spending hours making dance videos could probably handle a job application or two. The words were right there on my tongue, but I swallowed them back. Then Mom dropped the bomb. "You know, Ella," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand, "we've been thinking. You're spending so much on that apartment of yours. Why don't you move back home? You could save money, and we could help each other out." I felt like I was 16 again, watching my hard-earned money disappear into their pockets. The thought of giving up my peaceful apartment, my independence, my space, it made my stomach churn. But as I opened my mouth to refuse, I saw the familiar guilt-inducing looks on their faces. Okay, I heard myself say, and watched their faces light up with joy. A week later, I was back in my childhood bedroom. The room felt smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown too big for it. I laid down my conditions quickly. "I'll help with the bills and groceries, but I won't be cooking or cleaning." I did enough of that growing up. Mom agreed immediately, too quickly, really. It wasn't until I heard Sarah's outraged shriek the next day that I understood why. "What do you mean I have to clean?" she wailed. "I don't even know how to use the vacuum cleaner." "Well, it's time you learned," Mom said, in a tone far gentler than she'd ever used with me about chores. "Ella's helping us financially, so you can help with the house." I watched from my doorway as Sarah stomped around with the vacuum, barely touching the carpet, muttering under her breath about how unfair it all was. She'd post passive-aggressive stories on Instagram later about forced labor and unfair treatment, but I couldn't bring myself to care. After all, she was still living off my money, my grocery payments, my utility contributions, my rent equivalent that mysteriously never seemed to reduce our parents' financial strain. The least she could do was learn how to clean a bathroom. "Ella, have you noticed how shabby the house is looking?" Mom mentioned casually one morning over coffee. "The paint is peeling, and that wallpaper in the living room." Dad joined in immediately. "The bathroom fixtures are pretty outdated too. Sure would be nice to give this place a facelift." I knew what was coming. 3 days and several hints later, they finally asked outright if I would help with some home improvements. By help, of course, they meant pay for everything. I ended up spending nearly $30,000 on repairs and renovations. New paint throughout the house, updated bathroom fixtures, modern kitchen appliances, hardwood flooring to replace the old carpet, and fresh wallpaper in every room. I even had the exterior painted and the garden landscaped. The transformation was remarkable, I had to admit. The house looked like something out of a home improvement magazine. And suddenly, our house became the social hub of the family. "You must come see what we've done with the place," Mom would say on the phone to relatives and friends. "We've made such wonderful improvements." Always we. I'd sit quietly during these gatherings, watching Mom and Dad beam with pride as guests praised their beautiful home and excellent taste. Not once did they mention that I'd funded the entire renovation. Not once did they acknowledge that their improved lifestyle came from my bank account. As Christmas approached, they planned their biggest gathering yet. Mom invited every relative within driving distance, plus all their friends. "It'll be perfect," she kept saying. "Everyone will see how well we're doing." I spent a fortune on gifts for everyone, including a new laptop for Sarah that she'd been hinting about for months. Christmas Day arrived, and the house was packed with people admiring the renovations and enjoying the catered food, which I'd also paid for. When it came time to exchange gifts, I watched as Sarah unwrapped a brand new iPhone from our parents, complete with all the accessories. Her squeal of delight could probably be heard next door. My gift from them? A bath set from the drugstore, the kind you buy last minute when you've forgotten someone. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and thanked them, then watched as everyone opened the expensive gifts I'd bought them. Nobody seemed to notice the disparity. Nobody seemed to care. The party was winding down when Mom cleared her throat to make an announcement. "Linda and her kids are staying with us for a few days," she said, gesturing to her friend from out of state. Linda smiled warmly, her 2 teenage children looking tired after the long drive. "That's nice," I said, already thinking about how cramped the living room would be with 3 people sleeping there. But Mom wasn't finished. "Ella, you'll need to clear your things out of your room. Linda and the kids will be staying there." I stood there in the middle of the living room, still processing what I'd just heard. Linda and her kids shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the tension. "They can stay in the living room," I suggested, trying to keep my voice level. "We can set up the pull-out couch and bring in the air mattress." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom snapped. "They're guests. We can't make them sleep in the living room, they'll be uncomfortable there." The irony of her concern for their comfort hit me like a slap. "And what about my comfort?" I asked, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. "Did you think about that at all?" Dad waved his hand dismissively. "Stop making a scene. Just pack your things and move to the living room. It's only for a few days." I looked around at the house I'd renovated, at the Christmas decorations I'd paid for, at the presents I'd bought. Something inside me snapped. Why can't they stay in Sarah's room? The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's head snapped up from her new iPhone, her mouth hanging open. Mom and Dad looked at each other like I'd suggested setting the house on fire. I can't believe you'd even suggest that, Sarah sputtered. That's completely out of the question, Mom said firmly. Why? I pressed. Why is it okay to displace me but not her? Mom's face turned red. You're embarrassing me in front of my friend, she hissed. This is not how we raised you to behave. If you can't show proper respect in this house, Dad thundered, then maybe you shouldn't be here at all. Get out, Mom added, her voice shrill. Get out until you learn some manners. I looked at them, really looked at them. At Mom's self-righteous anger, at Dad's red face, at Sarah's smug little smile. Not one of them seemed to remember or care that I was the one who'd paid for the roof over their heads, the food on their table, the presents under their tree. I didn't remind them. Instead, I walked upstairs to my room, the room they wanted to give away, like it was theirs to give. My hands were steady as I packed my suitcase, as I made calls to find a hotel or hostel that had vacancies on Christmas night. The Paradise Inn, a small hostel on the edge of town, had one room left. I booked it immediately. 20 minutes later, I walked down those beautiful hardwood stairs I'd paid for, carrying my suitcase. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody said a word. Sarah just smirked and went back to playing with her new iPhone. The Paradise Inn wasn't much, a small room with a lumpy bed and a bathroom down the hall, but it felt more like home than my parents' house had in years. I spent New Year's Eve there, alone with Chinese takeout and my laptop, searching for apartments. I found a one-bedroom apartment in a modern complex across town, far from my parents' neighborhood. My phone buzzed constantly those first few days, texts and calls from my parents and Sarah. I didn't read or answer any of them. I bought furniture I actually liked, not just what my parents would approve of. Painted the walls colors I chose. Created a space that was entirely mine. 2 weeks after I moved in, Mom finally caught me off guard. I answered my phone without checking the caller ID, a mistake I wouldn't make again. The utility bills are due, she said without preamble, her voice sharp and demanding. Linda and her kids are gone now, so you can come back. Your room is waiting. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. No hello, no apology, just another demand. No, I said quietly. What do you mean, no? She sounded genuinely confused, as if the possibility of my refusal had never occurred to her. I mean no, Mom. I'm not coming back. And I'm not paying your bills anymore. There was a moment of stunned silence, then the explosion I'd been expecting. How dare you, she screeched. After everything we've done for you? This is how you repay us? By abandoning your family when we need you? I let her rant for a moment, listening to the familiar guilt trips and accusations. They didn't touch me anymore. You made it very clear how you really feel about me, I said when she paused for breath. You've shown me that I'm nothing more than a checkbook to you. Well, that checkbook is closed now. Don't call me again unless you're ready to treat me with respect. I hung up before she could respond. The calls and texts intensified after that. Dad left voicemails about family duty. Sarah sent manipulative messages about how she was suffering because of my selfishness. Mom alternated between rage and tearful guilt trips. I blocked them all. Weeks passed, then months. I threw myself into my work, got another promotion. Started taking yoga classes. Through mutual friends, I heard about what was happening at my parents' house. They were struggling to pay bills for the first time in years. Sarah had been forced to take a job as a cashier at the local supermarket, the kind of unglamorous work she'd always looked down on. She was apparently terrible at it, constantly calling in sick and complaining about having to stand all day. Mom and Dad were telling anyone who would listen about their ungrateful eldest daughter who had abandoned them in their time of need. They'd spin elaborate tales about all they'd sacrificed for my education, none, how they'd supported my career, they hadn't, and how I'd betrayed them as soon as I found success. Some people believed them. Let them. The truth was, I'd spent 25 years being the person they wanted me to be, the dutiful daughter, the responsible one, the family ATM. Now it was time to be myself. The funny thing is, I'm actually grateful to them now, not for the years of manipulation and control, but for that last Christmas night when they pushed too far. Sometimes you need to lose everything to find yourself.
Hi guys, my name's Mina. I'm single now, but I used to be married to a horrible guy named Jack. His parents, Shane and Irina, were just as bad, constantly making me feel unwelcome. To be honest, Jack and I both had good jobs and earned a lot of money, but his parents never acknowledged that. They thought I was a gold digger living off their son, partly because Jack kept saying things like, "Mia is very lucky to marry me. She loves a luxurious life, and she couldn't have that without my help." He even told them I handle most of our finances, which wasn't true. "Oh, Jack, you're so generous," his parents would say. "Any woman would be lucky to have you. Mia, you better take care of him properly. If he leaves you, you'll be left with nothing." "Thank God we made you sign a prenup," they added. "We knew Mia wouldn't amount to anything, so we had to protect our son." Yes, they made me sign a prenup. I don't mind prenups, but what angered me was Jack not discussing it with me beforehand. He always told his parents I earned way less than him and depended on him for everything, so they assumed I was a gold digger. Jack insisted I go along with his lies because he didn't want his family to look down on him if they knew I earned more. I loved Jack and didn't want him to feel humiliated, so I put up with the insults. I was a fool for marrying him. He didn't love or respect me, regularly humiliating me for supposedly earning less and spending all his money. The truth was, he got fired a year ago and was dependent on me. But he didn't want his parents to know. The final straw came when I bought a house. I received an inheritance from a relative and decided to invest it in a house. I found a beautiful one and bought it, putting the title in my name only. Jack protested, but I reminded him he didn't contribute a cent. He wouldn't stop pestering me, though. Things came to a head at a family dinner when his parents brought up the house. "So I heard you two bought a big house. It's truly one of a kind. Did you move in yet?" Shane asked. "Yes, we finalized the deal a month ago," Jack replied. "We're still settling in, but it's nice to have our own place." "So did you buy the house jointly?" Irina asked. "I don't see how your meager salary could afford such a big house, Mia. I guess my son paid most of the money." "No, Mom, you're wrong. I didn't pay most of the money," Jack said. At this point, I expected him to correct them and acknowledge that I paid in full and owned the house. But what he said next blew my mind. "Actually, I paid for the entire house. My job's been going so well that I could save up a lot of money, so I thought I'd buy a house in my name." "I knew it," Shane exclaimed. "My son is so successful, buying a huge house all by himself. I'm so happy for you, Jack." "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you, son," Irina added. "It must have been a huge feat to buy your own house. You've reached the peak of success." They kept congratulating Jack and ignoring me. I tried to get his attention, but he avoided my gaze. I was furious but held my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene in front of his parents. As soon as we left, I confronted him. "What the hell was that, Jack? Why did you tell your parents you bought the house by yourself? You didn't spend a penny on it." "Relax, Mia," he said. "I told them to make them happy. I don't want them to know I lost my job. They'd be extremely disappointed. What else was I supposed to do? You could have said we went 50-50 on the house, but no, you took all the credit," I replied. "I feel humiliated and cheated. This is very unfair." "Look, what's done is done. I'm not going back to correct myself," he said. "That was the breaking point for me. I would not humiliate myself like that. Who cares what my parents think? Let them be." He had no problem humiliating me but wouldn't face the truth himself. That day, I realized Jack had completely changed after our marriage. He no longer cared about me or my feelings. He had been mooching off me for the last year and showed no signs of getting a job. I was tired of shouldering all the family expenses, and he even fought with me to put his name on the house title. Somewhere in my mind, I knew he was using me, but I was on the fence about what to do. That was until something drastic happened. The next evening, as I was making myself a snack, I heard the doorbell ring. Curious, I went to see who it was because there was a lot of commotion at the door. Jack hurried downstairs, looking uneasy, and opened the door. To my shock, his parents were there with all their stuff, smiling and laughing with Jack as they brought their things inside. Before I could ask what was going on, they said, "Jack, we got all our stuff here. We packed as soon as you told us we could stay. You are the best son ever." "We knew we raised you right," Arena added. "When you told us to come stay at your new house, I told all my friends what a great son you are. We're so proud of you." "I'm glad to make you proud, Mom and Dad," Jack replied. "It's nothing, really. You guys were right. You need to stay with us since I bought such a big house with plenty of room for you." My mouth dropped open. In no world did I ever approve of Jack inviting his parents to stay in my house. This charade had gone too far. Still, I didn't want to confront Jack in front of his family. There was no way his parents were living in my house. But I tried to find a way to deal with the situation gently. They continued dreaming out loud about their new living arrangements. "Oh, it's so nice to finally live in a big house. We were getting cramped in the old place. I'm so proud of my son for being this successful. This house is magnificent," Arena said. "Yeah, and has 4 bedrooms. Imagine that, Arena," Shane added. "Oh my God, yes, 4 bedrooms. We'll take the biggest one. It would be a dream come true. Jack, show us the biggest and best room." "Why don't you two wait here while I have a chat with Jack?" I said. "I'm sure he has a lot of explaining to do." Jack looked panicked and avoided my eyes. He knew he was in deep trouble. I was already furious at my in-laws' sudden arrival and their demands for the biggest room. Jack could tell this wasn't going to end well for him, so he tried to hide behind his parents. "Why do we need to talk in private?" he said. "Since my parents will stay here, we can just talk in front of them. It won't be a problem." "Are you sure about that, Jack?" "Well, I don't mind discussing this in front of your parents if you don't." "Go ahead, Mia," Jack said. "Tell me what you want." "You know what I'm going to say, Jack. Your parents won't be living here. I won't allow this. You didn't even consult me before inviting them over. How do you think this is okay?" "How dare you say that to my son?" Arena snapped. "This is his house, and he can do what he pleases." "Yes, he doesn't need your permission to keep us here," Shane added. "Know your place, Mia. You can't talk to our son like that. Be careful, or he might kick you out. Now stop being a spoiled brat and show us the biggest room. We can't wait any longer." "Nah, I don't think I'll do that, Arena," I said. Arena and Shane were shocked by my audacity. I didn't know if I should be mad at them or Jack. Yes, they were entitled, but it was Jack's fault for lying and inviting them over. If he hadn't lied, we wouldn't be in this mess. Still, I couldn't ignore their threats to kick me out of my own house. "What do you mean, Maya?" Arena demanded. "If you don't show us the room, Jack will. Our son promised us the biggest room. We left our apartment because of that. We came here today because Jack promised to take care of us. He invited us to stay in his new house, so we ended our lease early." "Well, in that case, Arena and Shane, you've made a huge mistake. I don't think you can stay here at all, let alone get the biggest room." "How dare you, Mia? We don't need your permission to stay here. My son will show us our room if you don't. This house is not yours, so you can't dictate whether we stay here or not," Arena retorted. "You've got that wrong, Arena. I guess Jack hasn't told you yet. This house belongs to me, not him. So you won't be getting the biggest room. In fact, you'll have to do with the streets instead." "What? That's impossible. Jack told us he bought this house." "You're lying." "Is that so? Then why don't you ask Jack and find out the truth? I'm sure he'll clear everything up. Damn right we will. Jack, tell your wife she's being a lying witch right now. Yeah, Jack, tell her you own the house. You said so yourself. Both Shane and Irina looked expectantly at Jack, hoping he would confirm their belief. Jack stared at his feet, saying nothing. Slowly, it dawned on his parents that I might be telling the truth. They were still incredulous, as they had believed I was a gold digger with a poor job, while their son was the hardworking, successful one. Jack, why aren't you saying anything? This house belongs to you, right? That's what you told us. Why are you being so quiet? Jack, tell her she can't kick us out. What will he say, guys? He's been lying to you all this time. I can even show you the property papers proving I am the sole owner of this house. That can't be true. You work a simple job and don't have a lot of money. My son has a huge income and can afford this house. There is no way this house is yours. Correction, Irina. Your son had a huge income. He also didn't tell you he was fired from his job a year ago. Since then, he's been living off my income. For your information, I have a very good job. Just because I don't show off doesn't mean I'm poor. Oh boy, you should have seen the expressions on Shane and Irina's faces when I revealed the truth. They were totally dumbstruck. Jack, as usual, continued to stare at the floor, refusing to meet his parents' eyes. Jack, is this true? Irina demanded. You said this house was yours. Jack remained silent until I said, Okay, that's enough drama for one day. Shane and Irina, I've entertained you long enough. It's time you take your things and leave. Mia, you can't just kick my parents out like that. They broke their lease to come stay with us. They have nowhere to go right now. You can't just put them on the streets, Jack protested. I can, and I'd well, Jack. They didn't consult me before making this decision, and you didn't think to take my input before assuring them a place in my asterisk house. Look, this might be your house, but I'm still your husband. If I say my parents will stay here, they will stay here. You can't kick them out. That's right. This is also my son's house. Everything that belongs to you also belongs to him, so you can't kick us out. Irina insisted. No, Irina, I can kick you out. And don't worry about Jack because he'll be kicked out too. Now, Jack, since you're still married to me, I'll make a nice eviction notice for you. And I'll make sure we won't stay married for long. What do you mean, Mia? Are you going to divorce me? Yes, Jack, I am. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow to set up an appointment. We'll serve you by next week. Jack panicked at the mention of divorce. He looked furious, acting as if I couldn't possibly go through with it. You can go ahead and divorce me, Mia, but if you do, I'll take half the house and claim alimony from you, he threatened. How do you plan to do that, Jack? Have you forgotten the prenup you and your parents made me sign? Do you want me to remind you what it said? Jack suddenly remembered the prenup, which clearly stated that neither of us could claim alimony, and our private assets would remain separate in case of a divorce. Back then, Jack and his parents had made me sign it to protect him, never imagining he would end up on the losing side. Their faith in his success blinded them to the potential twists of fate. Their demeanor changed instantly. We don't have to jump to a divorce right away. We can sit down and have an adult conversation about this, they said. Yes, Mia, let's calm down and talk this out. I'm sure we can arrive at a compromise that will be beneficial for everyone. I don't care what would be beneficial for you. I refuse to be the cash cow for you, Jack, and I refuse to let your parents take advantage of me after how badly they treated me. That was in the past, Mia. Many years have passed since then. I'm sure you can look past that now. It was a very minor issue. You and Irina just threatened to have me kicked out because I refused to house you. And that happened just a few minutes ago. No more excuses. You and Irina need to leave before I call the cops. I would prefer if Jack leaves as well, but if he needs an eviction notice, he will get that soon. Jack, Shane, and Irina started begging me to change my mind. Those two idiots had really ended their lease to move in with us. Jack thought he could convince me to play along like I had in the past. He had no idea I would stand up for myself and stop being a pushover. I was done being the family doormat. Not anymore. When Irina and Shane refused to leave after an hour, I called the cops. They came and escorted them out of the house. After Irina and Shane left, Jack screamed at me for humiliating his parents. I reminded him he had only a month to vacate my house. That made him switch his behavior to being apologetic and remorseful. The way this family changed their behavior gave me a headache. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with them for long. From that night onwards, I didn't allow Jack into my room. He stayed in the guest room until it was time for him to leave. Yes, he was served with an eviction notice, so he had no choice. Meanwhile, his parents, after spending a huge chunk of their savings on a hotel, were forced to find a new place to rent. Surprisingly, they didn't allow Jack into their new place. Jack was left scrambling for accommodation, just like his parents. It seems their relationship has become strained. They blamed each other for their present condition, and now his parents refuse to support Jack anymore. Jack had to couch surf at his friends' places until he found a job. I filed for divorce. There was no way I was staying with him anymore. He disrespected me and revealed himself to be a vain and selfish man, nothing like the person I fell in love with. Jack tried his best to change my mind, but I was firm in my decision. I refused to be taken advantage of anymore. Since we didn't have kids, our divorce was finalized after 6 months of separation. In those 6 months, I rebuilt my life and started dating again. Surprisingly, Jack still hopes we can get back together, but that will remain a dream for him only.
And now it's time for the bride and groom to cut the cake, announced the NC. As I reached for the knife with my husband, someone grabbed my head from behind and smashed my face into the cake. I couldn't breathe, my face and upper body submerged in cream and sponge cake. Confused and struggling to get up, I fell on my butt, my face and my pure white wedding dress completely covered in cake. The banquet hall erupted into murmurs. I looked at my husband, and he was just as stunned. Then someone called out to me, "How unsightly. This is what happens when you don't listen to my advice." Standing there was a plump woman I had never seen before. Her face lit up with joy. "Excuse me, he's mine." "How dare you have a wedding so nauseatingly perfect?" Was she a guest? She was dressed formally, though huffing with anger. My groom, Nicholas, seemed to ponder for a moment before letting out a dry laugh. "A face full of cake, it's just a joke. Laugh it off, will you?" At that moment, I completely lost it. A woman ruining my once-in-a-lifetime wedding by smashing my face into a cake, and my husband trying to pass it off as a joke. I wouldn't forgive them. I'll show them. The wedding venue soon turned into a scene from hell. My name is Diana, 27 years old. Let me tell you about the major event that befell me, starting from my upbringing. I was born the only child to a company president father and a former model mother. I think it's fair to say I was born into a privileged family. My father was kind but strict, insisting that I needed to be able to survive on my own, so he made sure I focused on my studies. Thanks to my hard work from a young age, I got into a prestigious university and landed a job at a major corporation. I grew up to look just like my mother in her youth. People often said I should be a model, but I had no interest in that kind of work. A few years into my professional life, I faced some snide remarks about my looks initially, but worked hard not to be outdone by them. Eventually, I started to be recognized for my capabilities at work. I was beginning to feel a real sense of accomplishment in my work, but I didn't have a single boyfriend from my early 20s until I was 26. My friends would chuckle and say, "Diana, you seem like you're out of reach for most men. You seem normal once we talk to you, but maybe you're too intimidating for them. You don't show any vulnerabilities." However, I wasn't someone who prioritized romance, so not having a boyfriend didn't bother me much. I wasn't against the idea of marriage, but I was in no rush. Meanwhile, my parents seemed anxious about me not having a boyfriend. "Diana, you're beautiful, so you should get married to a good man before you get any older," my mother said with concern. I replied, "Mom, I want to marry someone who appreciates me for who I am. Plus, I'm busy with work right now." During this conversation, my father chimed in. "How about this, Diana? Want to meet a man I can introduce you to?" "An introduction by you, Dad?" "Yes, There's a young salesman who frequents our company who seems promising. If you say so, Dad, I'll meet him. And that's how I was introduced to Nicholas, who would later become my fiancé. Wow, you're so beautiful. It's so very nice to meet you, he said with a friendly smile as soon as we met. He had the bright and cheerful demeanor of a salesman, always carrying himself with confidence, a typical good-looking and pleasant young man. He approached me boldly, not intimidated at all. He was well educated, worked at a reputable company, and seemed to have a good character. I found myself increasingly drawn to him and started dating him. We were praised as a handsome couple, and I was quite pleased with it. My parents warmly supported our relationship, especially my father, who was very happy about it. Nicholas took charge in planning our dates and surprised me with gifts on ordinary days, thoroughly doting on me. I was aware of his slightly cheeky side, but it was overshadowed by his many good qualities. I gradually came to cherish him deeply. On my birthday, after a year and a half of dating, he reserved a high-end restaurant. At the end of the meal, he nervously took out a small box. Diana, I can't imagine life without you. Will you marry me? Nicholas, thank you. Of course I'll marry you. As I gazed at the ring in awe, he tenderly hugged me. At that moment, I felt the happiest I've ever been in my life. Next, we went to meet his parents. They warmly welcomed me into their home. My, what a beautiful young lady. Are you really going to marry our Nicholas? Of course, we're all for the marriage. Nicholas, take good care of Diana. On our way back, Nicholas said to me, my parents are usually pretty strict with me, but they were really kind to you. Really? Your parents didn't seem that way to me, I replied. You think so? They were pretty tough on me when I was young, but I'm glad they like you, Diana. It makes sense, given how beautiful you are. Stop it, you're making me blush, I said, laughing. A week after this conversation, it was time to introduce him to my parents. They were, of course, overjoyed. Diana, I was worried you were clueless about love, but you finally met your prince, my mother said, her eyes brimming with tears. My father added, Nicholas, if you marry Diana, I might even consider entrusting the company to you in the future. Really? Yes, I've heard you're competent at work, and I have high hopes for a promising young man like you. Surrounded by blessings and expectations for our future, our wedding was set. We decided to live together after the ceremony and began preparing for it. When we visited a newly built wedding venue, a wedding planner named Barbara greeted us. Diana and Nicholas, you're the perfect couple we're looking for. We'll offer a substantial discount on the wedding cost if you agree to be our showcase couple. A showcase couple? Yes, we'd like to use your photos and videos for our company's PR. We'll provide the dress and jewelry as part of a sponsorship. How does that sound? It's an offer we can't refuse. Let's do it, Diana, Nicholas said. I nodded in agreement, so we decided to have our wedding as a showcase couple. Although we were engaged, he and I continued living separately, occasionally going on dates as before. He was often unreachable due to his busy work schedule, but I didn't mind too much. Time passed, and a week before the wedding, I noticed an anonymous letter in my mailbox. I opened it, feeling suspicious, and was shocked by its contents. A week later, there I was at the wedding venue, dressed in my wedding gown. Diana, you look stunning, as expected, Barbara, the wedding planner, said cheerfully as she placed a sparkling piece of jewelry around my neck. Then the wedding ceremony began. Nicholas and I exchanged vows and rings in the chapel, watched by many friends, relatives, and colleagues from both our workplaces, including my father's company and Nicholas's company. There must have been over 200 people in attendance. Nicholas's boss led the toast, and the reception began. Our friends and colleagues came up to us one by one, saying, "You look so beautiful, congratulations." Then came the time for one of the highlights of the reception, the cake cutting. The moment for the cake cutting and the first bite, where we would feed each other cake, was upon us, and a crowd gathered around us to capture the moment. The moment a luxurious 3-tiered wedding cake, crafted by an artisan for our special day, was brought in. The MC announced, "Now it's time for the bride and groom to cut the cake." As Nicholas and I held the knife, ready to make the first cut, someone grabbed my head from behind and smashed my face into the cake. I couldn't breathe, my face and upper body buried in cream and sponge cake. Confused and struggling to get up, I ended up falling on my butt, my face and my pure white wedding dress completely covered in cake. The banquet hall was filled with murmurs. Looking at my husband, he was just as stunned. Then someone yelled at me, "How unsightly. This is what happens when you don't listen to my advice." There stood a plump woman I had never seen before, her face glowing with joy. "Nicholas belongs to me. How dare you have a wedding so nonchalantly?" Was she a guest? I wondered. Nicholas, trying to defuse the situation, said, a face full of cake, "It's just a joke. Laugh it off, will you?" At that moment, I completely lost it. A woman ruining my once-in-a-lifetime wedding by smashing my face into a cake, and my husband trying to pass it off as a joke. I wouldn't forgive them. I'll show them. Just as I was about to speak up, my mother's voice filled the wedding hall. "Stop this nonsense." She rushed over, helped me up, and glared at the woman. "What is this all about, Nicholas? Explain yourself right now." The woman, talking over my mother, shouted, "Shut up, old lady. It's all this woman's fault. I did nothing wrong." A colleague of Nicholas's quickly restrained the woman, who seemed to be trying to attack me. "Calm down, Sonia," he said, holding her back as she glared at me fiercely. After wiping my face with a handkerchief my mother handed me, I finally spoke. "Nicholas, who is this woman? What's your relationship with her?" "That's Sonia, a junior colleague at my company," he replied, his eyes clearly avoiding mine. I whispered to my mother to bring my bag from the dressing room. "Oh, a junior colleague, huh? Why would just a colleague do something like this?" "Well, that's because—" he began, but Sonia interrupted him, shouting, "Nicholas and I are in love. You have no right to be here." "Well, have you heard her?" "No, that's not true. She's my stalker. She's been claiming we're in a relationship and following me around. It's been a real nuisance," he shouted, pointing at Sonia. "What? What are you saying? We truly love each other." "Enough. Shut up. Security, please escort her out." At that moment, my mother returned. I took out a photograph from the bag she handed me and held it up. "Then what's this?" It was a photo of Nicholas sleeping in a hotel bed, clearly taken by a woman. "What is this, Nicholas?" Along with all the guests, he turned pale at the sight. I explained to everyone. This was sent to me anonymously a week ago along with a letter. Shall I read the letter? "Don't marry Nicholas. He belongs to me. Back off, Sonia. You sent this, right?" "Yes, that's right. You ignore my warnings." Nicholas panicked. "Diana, you knew. Then why?" "I couldn't cancel the wedding just a week before. The guests were already invited. Besides, this wedding has special circumstances, remember." "Special circumstances? What are you talking about?" Sonia asked, confused. The wedding planner, Barbara, intervened. "This wedding was part of a showcase project. We were going to use the footage for the venue's PR, with everything from attire to the planning sponsored by various companies." "A showcase? Sponsored?" Sonia's eyes widened in shock. The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sunk in. The once joyous occasion now marred by betrayal and deception. Sonia still didn't understand, and Barbara finally snapped. "Do you have any idea how many companies and staff were involved for this day? You've ruined it all, so be prepared for the consequences. Do you know how much this is going to cost in damages?" "Damages?" Sonia repeated, her face turning pale. A man then removed the jewelry from my neck, saying, "This jewelry was loaned to us by our company. It seems to have been scratched during the commotion earlier. It's worth $100,000, and now it's damaged." $100,000? Of course, you'll be compensating for this, right? Sonia turned pale and dashed toward the exit, but was quickly restrained by security. I watched this unfold and then turned to Nicholas. "Now it's your turn. Are you ready to face the consequences?" "Diana, I did have an affair, but it was just a moment of weakness," Nicholas stammered, his face white as a sheet. "Why would you cheat on me with someone like that?" "Well, Diana, you're beautiful and perfect. It's like eating gourmet meals every day and suddenly wanting a hamburger. It was something like that." "What?" Before I could raise my voice further, my father stepped forward in front of Nicholas. "You scoundrel, how dare you do this to my daughter?" My father, with bloodshot eyes, grabbed Nicholas by the collar and glared at him. "Sir." "You have no right to call me sir. I'm severing all business ties with your company. I never want to see your face again." A chorus of gasps came from Nicholas's colleagues. It seemed that my father's company had significant dealings with Nicholas's, so their reaction was expected. Nicholas, thrown to the ground by my father, was then punched squarely on the head by his father. "Dad, what are you doing? Shut up. Apologize to Diana and everyone else now." Trembling at his father's voice, Nicholas knelt down, pleading for forgiveness. "Diana, please forgive me. I'll break it off with that woman and promise to be a good husband." That's when I threw the cream-covered handkerchief at him. "How dare you? I will never forgive you. Our engagement is obviously over. Prepare for hell." With my mother by my side, I left the venue and my father announced the cancellation of the wedding. Later, Nicholas and I broke off our engagement and I received $30,000 in damages for his infidelity. Nicholas was, of course, responsible for paying the ruined wedding expenses. The venue pressed charges against Sonia and sought compensation for the damages, including the costs of the staff specially arranged for the dress and jewelry. Nicholas and Sonia were both demoted at their company and eventually resigned, unable to endure the scornful looks. Sonia ended up in significant debt, and Nicholas was disowned by his parents. I don't know what became of them, but they're likely living a miserable life. As for me, I managed to recover thanks to the encouragement of my parents and kind colleagues and friends. A year after that hellish wedding, a male colleague who had always liked me confessed his feelings, and now we are dating. I'm determined to learn from this experience and live a life full of effort until I find true happiness someday. Hi everyone, this is the story of my abusive mother-in-law and my useless husband who never bothered to protect me. I'll be using fake names to keep my identity private. Sharing my story is one thing, but dealing with real-life drama is another, and I don't want anyone to find me. So let's say my name is Peyton, my husband is Grant, and my mother-in-law is Joanne. There's also my grandma Lily, who is the sole reason I'm still alive today. Grant was a decent boyfriend, and I was completely in love with him, ready to marry him. When he proposed, I immediately said yes. But my life changed drastically after that. Grant started showing many red flags. I discovered that he and his mother were extremely close, and she essentially controlled him. Joanne began creating problems as soon as she moved in with us, mooching off her son. One day, she walked in with some papers and said, "Peyton, you need to come and sign these papers. The faster you do it, the better for you." "What are those papers, Joanne?" "This is an ironclad prenup that you both need to sign. It says that in case of a divorce, neither of you can claim anything from the other. Sign it right now." "Wait a minute. Did you just make a prenup without consulting us? This is really humiliating, Joanne. Why would you do that?" "I did this so you can't take my son to the cleaners in case of a divorce. You earn way less than him, and this house is his. We cannot trust you enough to try and take everything from him." "This is insane, Joanne. I am not some witch that you make me out to be. This is ridiculous. I won't sign a prenup just like that. I feel insulted. You should have talked to us about this." "Actually, I know about the prenup. It's not a big deal, Peyton. If you're really not with me for money, you should have no problem signing this," Grant interjected. I was taken aback that Joanne and Grant had discussed this without telling me. No, I wasn't with Grant for money. I didn't earn much, but I had a substantial inheritance in store for me, which I hadn't told Grant about yet. We fought for days, and Joanne regularly insulted me for not signing the papers. Eventually, I went to my grandma for help. She listened to everything I said and then asked, "Honey, are you sure you want to marry this man? I don't think he's the right one for you. You two aren't even married yet, and he's already making plans with his mother to corner you." "It's just this one problem, Grandma. I really love Grant, and he loves me too. I can't imagine marrying someone else. He is a good man." "Well, if you've made up your mind, I would encourage you to sign the prenup. I'll send my lawyer to read through the terms, but I have a request. Never mention that your grandparents are millionaires. I don't want them to know. I haven't told them anything yet, Grandma, but why do you want me to say it? I understand things better than you, Peyton. You're seeing them with rose-tinted glasses. Your grandfather and I worked hard to build this fortune. I don't want anyone to take advantage of you and steal your money. Grandma, you don't have to worry about that. I won't tell them anything since you asked me not to. Besides, Grant is a good man, and he will never do that. If his mother becomes too much, I'm sure he'll protect his wife." I was wrong. Grant was a horrible man, and his mother was much worse than I knew. I gave in and signed the prenup, later realizing it was a wise decision. As soon as we got married, Joanne started to abuse me regularly. Even after signing the prenup, she verbally and sometimes physically abused me. I'm too ashamed to speak of most things she did, but I will mention one incident because it was the turning point in my marriage. One day, when I was home after work, Joanne stormed into my room with a smirk on her face. She handed me a big bag of clothes and demanded that I wash them. I didn't protest because I was used to this behavior. I knew that if I refused, she would tell Grant, and then the two would verbally abuse me. It was a routine, so I picked up the heavy bag, even though it was hard for me. As I was walking down the hall, Joanne tripped me, causing me to fall and hurt my ankle. I screamed in pain, but Joanne just laughed and walked away. After putting some ice on my ankle, I called Grant. Grant, I fell and hurt my ankle. Your mother tripped me today. I've taken her abuse for a long time now. You need to do something. She's crossed the line. Don't make up lies about Mom, Peyton. She would never do something like that. You just want her out of the house and don't want to do your chores. Stop lying and defaming my mom. I'm not lying, Grant. Please believe me. Don't waste my time, Peyton. Go back and do the chores my mom gave you. I don't want to hear another complaint from you. Grant hung up on me. He never stood up for me, always acting like I was in the wrong. I didn't say anything because I didn't want him to leave, but this time, I couldn't take it anymore. I just cracked. Secretly, I had been seeing a therapist with my grandma's help, but their abusive ways were becoming too much to handle. It was then that I knew I had to get out. Joanne even sent me nasty texts saying I deserved what she did and that Grant would never speak against her. I was furious and determined to seek revenge. Later, my grandma passed away. I was heartbroken but relieved she was no longer in pain. I stayed strong, thinking she had finally reunited with my granddad. Grant didn't help me at all during this time. He didn't even show up to the funeral, but he found out that I had inherited $250 million. Grant was shocked and started being extra nice to me. The next day, another surprise awaited me. Joanne was sitting at the foot of my bed, looking creepily sweet. What are you doing here, Joanne? No one told me you were coming today. Why were you staring at me while I was sleeping? Oh, I came early to help you with the chores. I made you tea and it's right beside the bed. I know how much you love tea, so I ordered a special batch for you. You didn't answer why you were in my room while I was sleeping. It's creepy as hell. I was trying to massage your feet, Peyton. I know you hurt your ankle while carrying my laundry. Your feet must be sore, so I thought I could massage them for you. You literally tripped me that day, Joanne. How dare you show up and try to massage my feet? Don't you have any shame? Come on, don't be so dramatic. It was an honest mistake. I didn't know you'd fall or that the load was so heavy. I already massaged your foot to make up for it, didn't I? You think massaging my foot will make up for all the abuse? You're insane, Joanne. Get out of my room. I don't want to see your face right now. All right, I'll be in the kitchen making you breakfast. You don't have to worry about anything. I'll take care of it and make sure Grant has everything he needs. You take your time and freshen up. Joanne said that sweetly and left with a skip in her step. Her sudden change in attitude made my head spin. Even lying down, I felt like she had breached my privacy and was acting like a lunatic. Money can make people do crazy things, and Joanne was proof of that. Grant must have told her about my inheritance, prompting her visit and this sudden change of heart. But neither Grant nor Joanne knew that they wouldn't get their hands on my fortune. I had made sure of that. I got out of bed and dressed in my best clothes. It was my day of revenge, and I wanted to look my best. My therapy had been working well, and I finally had the confidence to stand up for myself. I went down to the kitchen with my bag, which held some important documents I needed to send out today. I guess you can tell what I was about to do. I found Grant and Joanne in the kitchen, looking very happy and whispering to each other. When they saw me, their smiles widened. Grant pulled out a chair for me while Joanne set about fixing me a plate. Why did you make breakfast today? I could have done it myself. You didn't have to trouble yourself with it. Grant hates it when you do something in this house. Nonsense, I'm happy to do this for you, Peyton. It's not a big deal, Joanne replied sweetly. Yes, it's just breakfast. My mom can do this for you. You don't have to worry about any kind of work from now on. Once we sell the house and buy a mansion, I'll look for a housekeeper. Until then, my mother can handle all the chores. I'll help her out too. You think buying my medicines is a waste of money, but suddenly hiring a housekeeper is cheap for you? And how do you plan to buy a mansion? Been robbing banks lately? Don't be ridiculous. We have plenty of money now. You just got a huge inheritance from your grandmother, Grant said. Yes, Grant is right. Finally, we are millionaires. We don't have to worry about money anymore. Your inheritance will last us a lifetime. We can do whatever we want now, Joan chimed in. Yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job. I was getting burnt out anyway. Maybe we can take a vacation and have some fun, Grant added. I started to laugh loudly at what they said. I couldn't believe my ears. It had only been a day since I received my inheritance, and these two were already making plans, thinking I would just hand over the money and let them do whatever they wanted. One day of fake good behavior was supposed to wash away years of abuse from my husband and mother-in-law. Joanne and Grant looked uncomfortable with my laughter, trying to avoid my gaze. Maybe their own plans sounded ridiculous even to them, as they held on to the hope that I would magically forgive them. After laughing for a few seconds, I said, My God, it's been one day since I got my inheritance, and look how drastically you've changed your tunes. Money does make a difference, doesn't it? Let's not dwell on the past now, Joan replied. We had no idea you had such good luck coming your way. We would have treated you better if we knew. Yeah, you shouldn't hide things from your husband and in-laws, Peyton. That was very sneaky of you. Anyway, what should we do with so much money? I was thinking of a house and a Caribbean vacation. Don't just say house, Joan interjected. Say mansion or villa. We can even opt for a penthouse. That would suit our status better. We are millionaires after all. All my friends will be so jealous of me. I listened to their banter and then casually took out the documents I had been hiding in my folder. Joanne and Grant looked expectantly at me, as if I was giving them papers that said all the money was theirs. But they were in for a shock. Holding the papers, I said, I would like to correct you there, guys. We are not millionaires. I am a millionaire. The money is mine, and I got it as my inheritance. Yes, you did get the money, but we share everything. We are married after all. So you should be sharing your money with me, Grant said. Yes, and as your mother-in-law and only surviving family right now, you should share the money with me as well. We are family after all. You are my daughter as much as Grant is my son, Joanne added. It's ironic how I have suddenly become your daughter, Joanne. Until about yesterday, I was just the witch your son married. Anyway, you shouldn't get so carried away. We won't be family anymore, not that we were ever family. What do you mean, Peyton? I'm your mother-in-law, so I am family, Joanne insisted. How could you be my mother-in-law when I won't be married to your son anymore? If Grant loses his husband's title, you'll be less than nothing to me. What is the meaning of this, Peyton? Why won't I be your husband anymore? What is going on? Grant demanded. Well, I have filed for divorce. I did it the day after my grandma died. I won't be staying with you anymore, Grant. You're a terrible husband and don't deserve to be one, I said, throwing the divorce papers on the table. Grant and Joanne both read the papers to check if I was speaking the truth. When they finished, their eyes shot up in disbelief, and they exchanged worried glances. I guess they didn't think I was capable of filing for divorce. What is this, Peyton? Why have you filed for divorce? This doesn't make any sense, Grant stammered. Do you think I'm weak enough to be stuck in an abusive marriage for the rest of my life? Why are you surprised, Grant? I told you this was coming. I told you the very day Joanne tripped me. My God, why are you still stuck in the past? I have apologized for it, and it has happened already. I can't change that. You need to be a little forgiving. This is not a big enough problem to warrant a divorce. Mom has already made amends for that, Grant said. So Joanne, you confessed to tripping me, and all you do is tell me to get over it? Get this into your heads. I am divorcing you, and you won't get a cent of my inheritance. I can't believe I fell in love with such a vile man like you, Grant. I'm ashamed I tried my best to impress a monster like you, Joanne, but this abuse ends now. We are definitely getting a divorce, and we can do this the simple way or the difficult way. Suddenly, Grant and Joanne looked very pissed at me. They didn't like that I called them out on their behavior. They knew I was serious since I had already filed for divorce. It wasn't a threat to make them do what I wanted. It was a reality they had to face, especially since I now had a lot of money. What's the use of divorcing me, Peyton? You have more money than me because your inheritance is our marital asset. I'll get half of it anyway, Grant said. You might get half, but most of it will be spent on the lawyer. Did you forget about the prenup you and your mother forced me to sign? I'm sure my dear mother-in-law can remind you of it. She was adamant we sign it, I replied. It suddenly dawned on them that they had screwed themselves over. They had no idea I would become a millionaire. They wanted to protect themselves because they knew no sane woman would stay with them after their abuse. The prenup was a way for them to abuse people without consequences. But this time, they just played themselves. They dug their own graves. The prenup was a long time ago. I'll talk to a lawyer and find out what we can do. We won't let you walk away with all that money, Grant stammered. Yeah, you're doing this to threaten us. You can't do anything to us, Peyton. We will take your money and do what we please with it, Joanne added. So I take it that you will try and fight me in court? I asked. Oh, don't worry, Peyton. We will make this hard for you. You can't just decide on your own. I'll fight you in court. You can't get divorced without my signature. Remember that, Grant threatened. Really, Grant? So you will intentionally make the process difficult for me? Well, that's not an issue. I'm prepared for everything. I have some ammo of my own, I said. What do you mean, Peyton? Joanne asked. Joanne, remember how you confessed to tripping me and abusing me in texts? Well, I will use them to file a report to the cops. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I said. No, you won't do that. You can't do that to me. I'll delete all the texts. Joanne panicked. Don't worry, Joanne. I have all the texts saved and sent to some of my friends. Trust me, I'm perfectly capable of reporting you to the police. In fact, I can also show how Grant knew and didn't do anything to protect me. It'll be a downhill battle for you in divorce court, I said. Joanne and Grant immediately started to hound me with apologies. They forgot that I had the power to put Joanne in jail. They thought I had let go of the incident, but I was just biding my time, waiting for the right moment. Joanne and Grant were in deep trouble, unsure of what to do. I took the divorce papers with me and left the house. I would collect my things the next day. Grant and Joanne tried to stop me, saying, "Don't walk away from us, Peyton. Let's sit and have a conversation about it. We can deal with the situation like adults and not make any rash decisions." Yeah, where will you go anyway? Let's talk about it, Grant added. I'm moving into my grandmother's house. It has already been transferred to my name. I will be living there and waiting for Grant to decide on the divorce. I'm taking the papers with me so that you can't damage them and make me file again. As for my things, I've taken pictures of everything. Don't even think about damaging or getting rid of anything, I warned. Grant and Joanne went on trying to stop me, but I had already called a friend who was waiting for me outside. I got into her car and drove off. Grant and Joanne stood at the door, staring at us the whole time. After arriving at my new place, I contacted a moving company and booked them to bring my things from the house. In the months that followed, Grant and Joanne did their best to try and change my mind. I kept reminding them about going to the cops. Grant did talk to a lawyer who told him in no uncertain terms that the prenup was solid and he had no way out. After being threatened by me multiple times, Grant was forced to sign the divorce papers. He didn't want his mom in jail after all, and he knew I would never give him a chance again. Grant and Joanne are currently not talking to each other. Wondering why? Well, Grant did not take the divorce well and started to blame Joanne for causing problems between us. He was sure that Joanne was the reason he missed out on being a millionaire. After countless fights, he ended up kicking her out with nothing. Since Joanne lived off Grant's money, she was left homeless and without funds. Last I heard, Joanne was in a homeless women's shelter with no idea what to do with herself. I made sure to inform everyone about what horrible people Joanne and Grant are, so they have been isolated from others. No one really talks to them anymore. As for me, I'm enjoying my new life and casually watching the aftermath. I still live at my grandmother's place since it holds sentimental value to me. From my inheritance, I have donated some money to women's help centers and plan on doing more for them. The rest of the money has been invested and secured for my future family. I still work at my old job since I don't want to sit idle. Life is good so far, and I'm hopeful I will meet someone who deserves me. Hello everyone, my name is Evelyn, and I'd like to share a story about how my mother-in-law, Rita, faced the consequences of her actions against me. The other key people in this story are my husband, Lucas, and Father Peter. They have given me permission to share this incident. This story revolves around the final, despicable act committed by my horrible mother-in-law, Rita. She was extremely abusive and manipulative. Lucas's father had died when he was young, leaving Lucas and Rita alone for a long time. Instead of finding a partner for herself, Rita relied heavily on Lucas for her emotional needs, clinging to him and chasing away all his girlfriends. You can probably imagine her reaction when Lucas told her he was marrying me. She went on a tirade and didn't even attend our wedding, thinking Lucas would cancel it if she didn't come. But that didn't happen, and when Lucas and I eloped, Rita was furious. She screamed at Lucas and caused all sorts of trouble. Despite Lucas's efforts, she never forgave him or acknowledged me. It was as if I didn't exist. She was even more upset when Lucas moved to my hometown for a great job opportunity, thinking I was taking her son away. For about a year, this drama continued until Rita surprised us by calling Lucas. "Lucas, I was thinking about visiting you. I haven't seen your new place and I'm curious. Maybe I can also try to build a relationship with Evelyn," she said. "Mom, that's great news. You can come over anytime. We have plenty of space. Evelyn and I will be happy to have you here, right, Evelyn?" Lucas responded enthusiastically. "If you really want to mend bridges, we would be happy to have you," I replied. Lucas had been missing his mom, and I wanted to support him, even though I had my doubts. From the moment Rita stepped into our house, my suspicions were confirmed. She monopolized Lucas's time and wouldn't let him sit near me. She barged into our room at night to chat, even banging on the door if it was locked. Despite claiming she wanted to build a relationship with me, she barely spoke to me. Things came to a head when we took Rita to a restaurant for dinner and drinks, hoping to make her feel welcome. After we ordered, Rita said, "I think you should check on our order. The city is horrible, and the people here are so unprofessional. I don't trust them to make the drinks correctly. What does Evelyn's dad even do here? He must be a Walmart employee or something. I don't know how people can survive in these places." "Mom, that's very disrespectful. You can't say things like that. The city is great, maybe even better than our hometown." "You're being rude again," Lucas reprimanded her. "It's all right, Lucas. You don't have to stop her. She's entitled to her opinions. Rita, you can check the drinks. But I assure you the staff here are very professional and well-trained," I interjected. "I didn't ask you, Evelyn. You need to stop inserting yourself where you're not wanted. Learn to shut up sometimes," Rita snapped and walked toward the bar. This incident was the tipping point, confirming my fears about Rita's behavior and making it clear that she hadn't changed. Lucas looked extremely embarrassed and apologized for his mother's behavior. I told him we would discuss it later. As Rita walked away, Lucas got distracted by his phone, but I kept an eye on her. I saw her whisper something to the waiter and place an item on the tray before quickly returning to her seat. The waiter appeared dumbfounded, then glanced at me. I nodded, indicating that I had seen everything. Maintaining a neutral expression, the waiter brought our drinks. He served Lucas and Rita, then paused before handing me mine. Hey boss, here is your drink, but I didn't make it according to your mother-in-law's instructions. I don't think you would have approved." Lucas looked confused. "Evelyn, why is he calling you boss? What's going on?" "Oh, I guess I forgot to mention Rita. My father, the man you think has no money, owns this restaurant, and I co-own it with him. So the staff call me boss." Rita immediately turned pale and started to shake. Lucas, noticing her worried expression, sensed something was wrong. "What is going on, Mom? Why did our server say you told him to do something to Evelyn's drink?" Rita stammered, "Oh, it's nothing. He must have misunderstood me. I only changed my drink, nothing else. He must be confused." I interjected, "Really? I'm curious to know what he misunderstood. Waiter, why don't you tell us what happened? Lucas and I are very confused." The waiter explained, "Mrs. Rita here tried to make me put this substance in your drink. She tipped me $1,500 to do it and walked away before I could refuse. You know, boss, we don't do things like that, not even for money." "Mom, what the hell is he saying? Did you really do this? You better tell me the truth," Lucas demanded. Rita, panicking, replied, "I don't know what the waiter is talking about, Lucas. I did no such thing. This is all a setup. Evelyn must have orchestrated this to make me look bad. It's her fault." "Wait, now you're blaming Evelyn? This isn't making you look very good, Mom. I'm getting more suspicious. You better tell me the truth." "Lucas, how could you suspect your own mother? Your wife is purposely turning you against me. Trust me, this is all a ploy to separate us. She's already winning." "I'm telling you the truth," Rita pleaded. "Really, Rita? If you're so innocent, let's check the security footage. It would make things easier, wouldn't it? No one will have to assume anything, I suggested. That's a great idea, Evelyn. I'm sure you have free access to the CCTV footage here. Let's look at it and find out what happened. Then we will know who is telling the truth, Lucas agreed. At the mention of checking the footage, Rita paled even more. She started to act desperate and couldn't control her tears. Why do we need to check the footage? Don't you believe me, Lucas? I am your mother. You can't just accuse me of doing something like this. I'm not accusing you of anything, Mom. Your behavior has been very strange. It's not sitting well with me. Besides, we all need to know who is lying. Trust me, if you are innocent, I'll make sure the people who disrespected you pay. There is no need for that, Lucas. I forgive them for doing this. I'm a forgiving person. We don't have to get into this CCTV business anymore. Let's just go home, Rita tried to deflect. Calm down, Rita. We will go home once we know what's on the CCTV footage. It's only fair that we know the truth, Lucas insisted. Rita tried her best to convince us not to check the security footage, but none of us listened. I excused myself to visit my dad privately under the pretext of talking about the footage. Inside his office, I said, Dad, you need to pull up the CCTV footage from the bar. Rita tried to mess with my drink. The waiter told us everything, and now Lucas insists we check the footage. Wow, that would be interesting to watch. What does Rita say about this? My dad asked. She doesn't want us to check the footage, of course. She's afraid of being found out. The waiter had warned me about her plans. What she did is not okay. I literally want to throttle her for trying to hurt my precious daughter. You should be more angry about this, Evelyn. Trust me, Dad, I'm pretty mad, but I'm keeping my cool. I have big plans for Rita. There is no way I will let her go easily, and I will need your help to teach her a lesson. My dad seemed very eager to know what I had in mind. After I told him everything, a look of delight and mischief spread across his face. He was furious at Rita for trying to harm me, but he was also pleased with my plan. He pulled up the security footage and I brought Lucas and Rita to the office. Dad played the footage, revealing Rita handing the waiter a packet and tipping him money, clearly pointing to my drink. The room fell silent for a few moments. Lucas looked ready to explode with anger, while Rita appeared like a deer caught in headlights. Even my father was glaring at her with intense displeasure. I remained calm and neutral. Lucas finally broke the silence. Mom, what is the meaning of this footage? So you were lying about not having anything to do with this. Rita, visibly shaken, realized she had been caught red-handed. She turned on the waterworks, clutching Lucas's jacket and crying pathetically. It was almost amusing to see a grown woman trying to manipulate her way out of trouble by crying, but I held back my laughter. Mom, how dare you try to hurt my wife? Is this why you've been in contact with us? I really thought you were ready to change. Now I see you just wanted to hurt Evelyn and create a rift in our relationship, Lucas said, his voice full of anger and disappointment. Lucas, you have to listen to me. You're misunderstanding me. I didn't mean to harm her. I just wanted to spike her drink so she'd get too drunk. I wanted Evelyn to embarrass herself and pass out sooner, Rita tried to explain. Are you kidding me? You tried to drug my wife's drink. Are you insane, Mom? What is wrong with you? Lucas was incredulous. It was a harmless substance, Lucas. I just wanted to spend some time with you alone. After your marriage, you've chosen your wife over me, and I hated it. I just wanted you to pay more attention to me, Rita continued, desperate. So, to get me out of the picture, you decided drugging me was the best idea. What kind of cheap crime thriller have you been reading? I snapped. Shut up, Evelyn. You have no right to speak between me and my son. This is why I wanted you out of Lucas's life. You've ruined everything, Rita spat venomously. Mom, how can you say that? Evelyn is my wife and has every right to speak on this matter. She is the victim here, not you. You are the one who ruined everything. I don't think we can come back from this. Stay away from me and Evelyn. We want nothing to do with you anymore. Don't try coming by the house. If you do anything stupid, there will be consequences, Lucas warned. Rita started to panic even more, sobbing and still defending herself. Despite everything, she blamed me for her actions. Lucas had had enough of her nonsense and continued to berate her. She finally addressed me directly, her voice filled with hatred. You witch. I will never forgive you for this. I will destroy you. Just you wait. No one can take my son from me and walk away without consequences. I will ruin your life. Oh really, Rita? You have the audacity to still stand here and threaten my daughter in front of me? What will you do about it, Peter? Throw me out of the restaurant? Do it and I will still find a way to get back at you, she challenged. You think I will just throw you out of my restaurant? Absolutely not. You tried to drug my daughter and bribe my waiter. I'm reporting you to the police, my dad declared firmly. No, you can't do that. You can't call the cops on me. You can't get me arrested, Rita screamed, panic-stricken. Yes, he can, Rita. We have solid evidence of you bribing a waiter to tamper with my drink and drugs. The cops will have a field day with you. You'll be going to jail, I stated calmly. Rita was in shock, while Lucas remained impassive, fully supporting me. My dad had already called the cops, who had just arrived and entered through the back door. Seeing them, Rita became hysterical. She grabbed Lucas and pleaded, Lucas, are you going to stand there and do nothing? Your witch wife and father-in-law have called the cops on your own mom. You need to do something and save me. Why would I do that, Mom? They haven't done anything wrong. If I were in their place, I would have done the same thing. What you did was despicable. You literally committed multiple serious crimes, Lucas replied coldly. Today, do you really want to see your mother in jail, Lucas? Will you be happy to see me get arrested? What about my reputation? Rita cried out desperately. You destroyed your own reputation when you committed a crime to harass my wife. Yes, I would be happy to see you in jail. It looks like there's no other way to make sure you learn your lesson. You think I didn't notice how you kept blaming Evelyn for your actions? I'm not a weak husband who won't defend his wife just to appease his mother. I don't care if you get arrested. I won't bail you out or help you with anything. Be prepared for a restraining order as well, Lucas replied, his voice firm and resolute. Rita turned pale and started to shake, her eyes wide with fear. She looked at the cops who were taking our statements and watching the video. Then they swiftly walked up to her and cuffed her. Rita kicked and screamed, trying to make a scene, but thankfully the noise of the restaurant music drowned her out. The cops dragged her away, promising to update us about the situation. After the cops left, Lucas broke down in tears. Years of frustration with his mother and her toxic ways finally overwhelmed him. He started to apologize, sobbing into his hands. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I'm a horrible husband. I left my mother close enough to try and hurt you. She almost jeopardized Peter's business by bringing drugs here. I'll never forgive myself for this. I don't even think I can show my face to you guys. That is nonsense, Lucas, I said, my voice steady. You did what any son would do. You simply wanted your mother and wife to get along. You had no way of knowing that Rita would go this far. Trust me, none of us are mad at you. Right, Dad? You are right, Evelyn, my dad chimed in. Lucas, you need to stop blaming yourself for someone else's mistakes. You are a good man and nothing like your mother. I just want you to let Rita suffer the consequences of her actions. I don't want her to try and hurt my daughter again. Can you promise that? Yes, Peter, I promise, Lucas said, his voice firm. I will not interfere with the case in any way. I will allow you two to handle it on your own. After what Mom has done, there is no way I'm helping her out or allowing her back into our lives. What I said a few minutes ago is true. I am going to file for a restraining order against Rita. I've had enough of her. She is not coming near Evelyn again. Lucas's words sent me over the moon. I was falling in love with him all over again. He reminded me why I married him and truly wanted him to be my husband. His display of the shiny spine made all his trouble totally worth it. I could also tell my dad became even more impressed with Lucas. It was a total win-win for all three of us. Rita's life quickly fell apart. First, she had a hard time getting out of jail. She had some money, but with legal fees and all, she couldn't meet the bail amount. It also didn't help that her job fired her as soon as the news of her arrest spread. She was found guilty on multiple charges and was sentenced to 8 months in prison. Rita was also made to pay a hefty fine for her crimes. What broke her the most was that her own son testified against her. Lucas outlined her previous issues with me and established a motive for tampering with my drink. Rita listened to her son and cried like a banshee as the judge gave her a harsh speech and sent her to prison. While the case was ongoing, Lucas and I filed for a restraining order. My dad also joined in and filed for a restraining order, wanting to be safe in case Rita tried to vandalize or attack him after she got out of prison. Thankfully, the judge granted us the restraining orders. It also helped that my dad's office had a CCTV camera that recorded her threats, which was presented as evidence in the other cases against her. The whole incident brought me, Lucas, and my dad even closer than before. Lucas ended up sharing a lot of his childhood trauma with us. My dad and I convinced him to join therapy, and he agreed on our insistence. So far, he is doing great, and we are actually having a good life right now. As for Rita, it looks like she is going to be far away from us for a while. If she tries to show up again, she'll be promptly thrown back into prison. Hey there, I'm Tanya, and I recently went through a divorce. I wanted to share my story in hopes that it might reach someone going through a similar situation, and maybe, just maybe, offer some help or insight. A bit of background: my parents split when I was 7 years old. My dad was a Navy SEAL, often away from home, and eventually my parents' relationship crumbled. My mom remarried a man named Paul, and I ended up living with them. Paul was seriously abusive, and the worst part was that my mom knew but loved Paul too much to do anything about it. She turned a blind eye to what was happening in our house. My dad would visit occasionally, and I would spend weekends at his place. Despite being close to my dad, I was too scared to talk about the abuse, even with him. He always made me feel like the most important person in his life. One day, near the end of middle school, I was with my dad at the beach when he noticed bruises on my thighs. "Hey, what is that on your leg?" he asked. Nothing. I just got hurt," I replied. "How? That's a pretty rough bruise." "I just don't remember." "You don't remember? Are you keeping something from me?" "Dad, no. I must have gotten it in PE. You know you can tell me about anything. I may be away a lot, and maybe you're closer to your mom, but my love for you is just as strong, if not stronger." "Dad, actually, I'm sorry I haven't told you this, but Paul, he's cruel to me." "Cruel how?" "Well, sometimes he hits me. I'm not saying it's without reason. I bear some blame too. One day, I left the door open and his dog escaped. He used his belt on me." "What? Where was your mom?" Mom turns a blind eye to it. "Darling, fear not. This ends right now. I'm taking you to my place, and you will be staying with me. I'll have a serious talk with your mom. This ends now." My father took charge of the situation, and after legal proceedings, he obtained full custody of me. I moved in with him, which was a much better setup. Due to his work commitments, I often stayed at my aunt's place nearby. My mother initially apologized and tried to reconcile, but she eventually cut me off. Truth be told, I wasn't as close to her as I was to my dad anyway. I went on to medical school, earned a degree, and became a licensed cardiologist, fulfilling a lifelong dream. Both my dad and aunt were immensely proud of my achievements. During this phase of my life, they were my only family. I wasn't particularly outgoing but had a couple of close friends. Given my profession, I made an effort to be more extroverted, and to my surprise, I became quite adept at it. I met my husband Justin at a karaoke bar, an unusual place for me. But it was my friend's birthday. Justin needed a partner for a duet of Time of My Life, and my friends, knowing I found him cute, pushed me to join him. It turned out to be a really enjoyable night, and we exchanged numbers. We started dating, and I introduced him to my dad. My dad liked him immediately. Justin, a marketing assistant, had a likable personality and provided the love and care I had missed before my dad stepped in. A year into our relationship, Justin took me back to the same karaoke bar where we first met and proposed. "I think it's time for us to start the family we've always talked about," he said. "What do you mean, babe?" I asked. "Tanya, there's something I've been wanting to ask you for a while now." "What is it, Justin?" When we first met at that karaoke bar, I had no idea I was meeting the love of my life. "You've brought so much happiness and warmth into my life, and I can't imagine spending it with anyone else. Tanya, will you marry me?" "Oh, baby, yes." I'll be completely honest. While some people might find it perfectly okay to get married within a year, for me, with the emotional walls I had built over time, it felt a bit early. I said yes in the moment but had many thoughts afterward. I loved Justin deeply, but I was afraid that if I asked for more time, he might consider ending our relationship. So I decided to go along with it. We had a very private wedding ceremony. I invited my mother, but she didn't show up, which was somewhat disappointing because, after all, she was my mother. However, my dad was there, and I was immensely grateful for his presence. He walked me down the aisle, and I was officially married to Justin. A year into our marriage, we were blessed with a beautiful baby girl. I remember after my delivery, the room was filled with balloons and flowers as everyone came to visit. My dad, Justin, and his parents. As a new mother, I decided to take some time off work to be with my daughter. That early time with Amanda was incredible, and I still cherish every moment of her babyhood. There's truly nothing as beautiful as bringing a child into this world. It is a testament to the wonders of life. Justin was working during this time, but eventually I had to return to my job. Justin was amazing as a dad, super playful and gentle with our daughter. He would even let her go to town with makeup on his face. He was a real sweetheart as a dad. But here's the thing, with both of us heading back to work, we decided to hire a nanny to look after Amanda. She was a little bundle of energy, and we wanted her to have the best care while we were away. After some time, I got pregnant again, and then out of the blue came the shocker. The doctor revealed that I was not just expecting one more addition to our family, but twins. It wasn't exactly what we had planned for, but it brought a boatload of joy into our lives. Little did we know that with the arrival of our children, the dynamics of our marriage were about to shift. Justin wasn't exactly thrilled that I earned more than him. He never openly discussed it with me, but I sensed his feelings when our friends Carrie and Dylan came over for dinner during my third trimester. "So how are you guys feeling about the babies on the way?" Dylan asked. "Oh, we are excited. A little nervous, but mostly excited," Justin replied. "Speaking of babies, have you guys thought about names yet?" Carrie inquired. "Oh yes, we've been brainstorming. We want something unique but not too out there, you know," I said. "Any favorites so far?" Carrie continued. "Well, we've been tossing around a few ideas but haven't settled on anything just yet," Justin added. "How about family names? Those can be really meaningful," Dylan suggested. "Absolutely. We've been researching strollers that can accommodate multiple babies. It's been overwhelming, but we'll figure it out," I said. "It's amazing how much stuff you need for 2 babies, right?" Dylan said. "Just tell me about it. Our checklist keeps getting longer," Justin replied. "Tanya, do you miss being at work?" Carrie asked. "A bit. You know, being a doctor is tough, but when you treat people and help them, it just feels so good to see their smiles," I responded. "Wow, a corporate worker and a doctor. Do you even manage to find time to make all these babies?" Dylan joked. "Ah, come on, Justin. I'm pretty sure your wife must be the money bag in the house, you know?" Carrie teased. "Well, you know how it is, Dylan. I actually earn more than Tanya," Justin said nonchalantly. I could not believe what Justin had said. Why would he lie about something like that? After Dylan and Carrie left, while we were doing the dishes, I finally decided to talk to him about it. "Justin, can we talk for a moment?" "So, what's on your mind?" he asked. "You said you earn more than me, but that's not true, is it?" "No, it's not true," he admitted. "Justin, why on earth would you lie about something like that?" "I don't know, Tanya. I guess I was just embarrassed. It felt awkward." "Embarrassed? I had no idea this was such a sensitive topic for you." "I am not sensitive, Tanya. I'm a man, and I should be the one in charge." "You've never complained about it before. What has got you so worked up now?" "I just don't want people to think I'm some kind of loser, okay?" "Justin, if it works for us, it works for us. Who cares what other people think?" "Yeah, whatever," he muttered. Justin's response left me feeling uncomfortable. It came across as somewhat misogynistic. What was the problem if our arrangement worked for us? I never had an issue with having a husband who contributed less financially. After all, money is not what keeps a family together. At that point, I had a lot on my plate, so I didn't dwell on it too much. 2 months later, the big day finally arrived. My pregnancy had been complicated, but eventually I gave birth to twin baby boys. In the hospital bed, I held my precious little boys, Abe and Leon, in both my hands. "Our family feels complete, baby. You've made me the happiest man alive." "I love you," Justin said. "It wasn't all me, babe. Amanda, look at your baby brothers. Aren't they so cute?" "Baby brothers?" Amanda asked. "Yes, sweetheart. Do you want to sit next to Mom?" "Yes," she exclaimed. "Hello, baby brothers." At that moment, I felt an overwhelming contentment with my life. I dreamed of being the best mom to all my kids, something I had never gotten from my mother. My deepest desire was to provide them with everything they wished for and shield them from all the bad things in the world. Soon, I took the babies home, and we had the whole nursery set up for them. Justin and I both took some time off work. While Justin eventually returned to the office, I didn't. Then things got really tough at home, juggling the care of the babies and Amanda. We were in a tight spot financially, and things weren't exactly rosy. I had a strong desire to give my family the best of everything, and I had the means to do so. But we also needed a parent at home to take care of the kids. It was a challenging situation, and we needed to find a way to make it work. The issue was the significant income gap between us. Justin brought in only $30,000 a year, while I earned $150,000 a year. You could see the difference. From my perspective, it made sense for me to continue working. I had a good career and a well-paying job with the potential for salary growth. I thought I would talk things out with Justin, and he would understand my viewpoint, but things did not go my way. We had just had dinner, and Justin and I were in the twins' room to check up on them. 3 kids. We always planned for 2, but I'm not complaining. They're so cute, Justin said. Yeah, they are. Well, I want to talk to you about something. Sure, what's on your mind? We need to secure all our kids' futures, you know. I know I might be thinking too far ahead, but we can provide them with better opportunities. We can even help them with their college if they need it. You're right, Justin agreed. If I continue with my job, we can save more. And if I work for a few more years, I'll likely get a raise. That would be amazing, but who will stay with the kids at home while we are working? What if you quit working and stay home to take care of the kids? Are you kidding me? No. You get along with them so well. What I mean is, I am the man of the house. Just because you have a higher paying job does not make you the decision maker. Justin, are you kidding me? Can't you see we would have a better life if I went to work instead? Seriously, is your ego that fragile that taking care of the kids makes you think you're less of a man? Justin looked furious, something I had never expected. He raised his hand and slapped me right across my face. How dare you say that to me? You're trying to be the boss, aren't you? Just stay within your limits. Do what you're asked to do, and more importantly, listen to me. Justin left the room, leaving me standing there in shock. It brought back memories of the situation with Paul. I was utterly stunned. How could my husband, the father of my children, someone I thought was the love of my life, do this to me? I am not suggesting all men are the same, but this experience shattered my trust and made me question everything about our relationship. Some men are incredibly insecure of their masculinity, and I was devastated to realize Justin was one of them. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and most of all fear. I was scared to be around Justin, unsure of what he might do if I made another wrong move. That night, I couldn't sleep and spent on the couch contemplating my options. I knew I needed to get out of this marriage, not just for my sake, but for the kids as well. I had been through a similar situation when I was young with my mom's husband, Paul. My dad had taught me well after that, showing me how a real man should treat women. Then one of the twins started crying on the baby monitor, and it hit me. We had the baby monitor in the twins' room, and it must have recorded everything that had happened. I had solid proof. The first thing I did was extract the footage. As I watched the recording, an idea began to form in my mind. I waited until morning, making sure Justin and the kids were still asleep, then made a call to my dad. Good morning, Bunny. Hey, Dad. You're calling me so early today. Is everything all right? No, Dad. Something happened last night. I need help. Are you safe, honey? What happened? Yes, for now. Last night, Justin and I argued, and things got out of hand. He slapped me. What? How dare he? Why did you wait all night to call me? I didn't know what to do, Dad. Sweetheart, remember what I have always said. I'm here for you whenever you need me. I mean it. Well, Dad, the thing is, all of this happened while we were in the twins' room, and it got recorded on the baby monitor. Bingo, we have proof. We're going to get that bastard. I know some people in law enforcement. Honey, stay put. Where is Justin right now? He's still sleeping. Why don't you send me that video and get the kids? I'm coming. I woke up Amanda and gathered the twins, hastily packing a bag for them. I forwarded the recording to my dad. Anxious, I waited in the living room. Just 15 minutes after the phone call, there was aggressive knocking on the door. As I approached, I could hear Justin coming down the stairs. Who's at the door, and why are the babies here? What's going on? Open the door. It's the police. The police? Who called them? Justin rushed down the stairs, and as he did, I opened the door. The first person to enter the house was my dad, who hugged me tightly. Thank God, honey. You are safe. I'm so sorry. Thanks for being here, Dad. You're under arrest for assaulting your wife. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you. Is this about last night? You've got this all wrong. It was just a big misunderstanding. The police officer handcuffed him. Get these things off me, I said. OT, you're going to pay for this, I promise. I will break your jaw if you ever speak to my daughter like that again. Consider yourself lucky that I did not handle this myself. Take him, officer. My dad drove me and the kids to his place. Both Justin and I hired attorneys, and there was a lot of courtroom drama. Surprisingly, his criminal record included a bar fight where the other person ended up hospitalized for a month. I had no idea of this. As a result, Justin was sentenced to 3 months in jail. I sent him the divorce papers and not only gained custody of my children, but Justin also did not receive any visitation rights. I had a lot to figure out, but my dad offered me a solution. You know I am retired. If you'd like, we can take care of the kids here until you have something else going on. No pressure. Dad, that would mean a lot to me while I figure things out. Furthermore, I've met someone named Kathy. She brings me a lot of joy. Would you mind if she moved in here too? I had already asked her before all this happened and was going to inform you. No, Dad, I'm more than pleased. I'm glad you found someone. You can return to work, and Kathy and I will look after the kids. Sounds perfect, Dad. It has been 6 months since we moved into my dad's house, and a lot has transpired during that time. Justin was released from jail but did not attempt to contact me. I got back to work and met Kathy. She possesses wisdom and experience, and she's very affectionate. Surprisingly, she also provides motherly advice, filling a void in my life. All my kids are healthy, and Amanda has started preschool. Honestly, I believe I might need more time to fully recover from everything. However, on the bright side, I'm grateful for everything I have. For now, I am just concentrating on my work and my kids. It may take time to heal and grow, but surrounded by the love of my family, I know I will find my way.